I found out through the Pharyngula blog that Conservapedia has named their article on atheism the Article of the Year. Conservapedia is, so they claim, an unbiased version of Wikipedia, without all of the liberal censorship. Apparently a site where anyone can edit the page and fix problems with a neutral point of view is biased, and a site run by conservatives isn't. This should make the site every bit as fair and balanced as Fox News. The Atheism page is the perfect example of this. It is full of one-sided arguments and quotations, and the page has been locked to prevent further editing. They have a section, Atheism and Mass Murder, but on the Christianity page, there is no corresponding Christianity and mass murder covering the Crusades, the Inquisition, the witch hunts, and other historically valid examples of mass murder by Christians. They also have arguments against atheism and for theism, again without a corresponding section on the Christianity page. Also lacking is the atheist response to these arguments. It is these I would like to present in this video. Their first argument against atheism is the teleological argument. That's our old friend, argument by design. I refuted it in this previous video, so I won't go into it here. Next is the cosmological argument. Quote, every event in our universe necessarily has a cause. However, it is impossible that there should be an unending chain of causes going back. Therefore, there necessarily must be a cause distinct from the universe as we know it, which is capable of causing all things and is itself uncaused. Atheism denies that that first cause is God. Actually, atheism doesn't deny the possibility of some sort of entity being the first cause, merely that postulating it doesn't do you any good. The whole point, by their own admission, is to have a terminator to the chain of causes. We know the universe didn't go back to infinity. It began with a Big Bang. The cosmological argument says that God must be the cause of the Big Bang. But as with the teleological argument, you have the problem, what caused God? How did God come into being? If you're going to say that God does not require a cause, then you've just destroyed the argument. Because one could just as easily say, with a good deal of evidence to back it up, that the Big Bang does not require a cause. And even if you were to reject that, you still have no more cause for God being the ultimate cause than the Great Green Arkle Seizure or the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Next is the ontological argument. Quote, since existence is inherent to the definition of God, it is impossible to conceive of God without conceiving of Him as existing. In other words, it's inherent to the definition of God that He exists. Therefore, anything that doesn't exist isn't God, therefore God must exist. If your head isn't spinning from the circular reasoning here, then I would point out that the same thing can apply to any other concept someone can dream up. You may have an idea in your head of what your true love would be like. This would be the absolute perfect ideal and, equally by definition, must exist, because how can you love someone who doesn't exist? But of course it is completely possible to imagine a true love that does not exist or cannot exist. In reality, reasonable people know that this ideal is impossible, and the best we can hope for is to find someone who is close enough. The truth is, theologians have rejected this argument at least as far back as St. Thomas Aquinas, and it is terribly embarrassing that apparently intelligent people think that there is any validity to it at all. Next, they mention historical and experiential arguments. For example, Jesus must have been resurrected because people claim to have saw Him resurrected. By that argument, you must also believe in UFOs, ghosts, mind reading. Here's me getting my mind read by Banachek.
Thank you. You can tell he's a skeptic. He's really examining it. Just say stop.
Stop.
Look at the first word, top of that page.
Okay.
Quality, that's your word, is it
That
not?
is quality.
Give him a round of applause, please.
Ouija boards, dowsing, fairies, Bigfoot, and many other ridiculous claims. In fact, it's been long understood by investigators that eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable, and many times the testimony of eyewitnesses has been shown to be false by forensic science. And that's assuming they weren't lying or their testimony distorted as the story got retold over and over again. The other evidence they mention is archaeological. But the truth is, there aren't any God artifacts at all. There is archaeological evidence to support many of the places and events in the Bible, but this is nowhere near enough to prove that God exists or even that the Bible is a true account of these events. Imagine 1,000 years from now, archaeologists discovered the lost city of Atlanta. They discovered that at that time, people did keep blacks as slaves, and they fought a war with their brethren to the north. Therefore, Gone with the Wind is true. Finally, there is what they call presuppositional apologetics. Their page on this quotes a prominent ministry describing it thus, quote, "A Christian presuppositionalist presupposes God's existence and argues from that perspective to show the validity of Christian theism." In other words, you come up with your conclusion first and you find arguments to support it. Of course, this is not how any rational examination works, because you would completely miss all of the arguments that refute it. Now, there is a place for presupposition in scientific examination, but it's for the purpose of falsifying, not supporting, the presupposition. For example, the famous mathematical proof that the square root of 2 is irrational starts off by presupposing that it is rational, examining this case, and coming up with a result so absurd that it absolutely cannot be true. This is exactly the opposite of what apologetics does. These are their arguments against atheism. They are all laughably weak, and yet they picked this as their article of the year. They locked the article from further editing, meaning that they feel there are absolutely no problems with it. This is the best they can come up with. And, as usual for religious dogmatics, it comes up laughably short of its stated goal.